The left has laid out the ground rules for all-out warfare. They're going to continue to test this administration until they make a choice. Do we all have to endure several more years of terrorism in which Antifa terrorists are allowed to subvert the rule of law and the will of the voters? Or are we actually going to treat these terrorists like terrorists? Here's something that never happened as the Biden administration was carrying out its nationwide crackdown on conservatives as they rounded up conservatives who prayed outside of abortion clinics, who walked around the Capitol building, who posted memes on social media, and so on. They never once, not one time, punished a law enforcement official for excessive force against conservatives. And they had no shortage of opportunities to do so. On January 6th alone, a Capitol police officer with a lengthy and documented history of incompetence shot an unarmed woman to death. Another Capitol police officer shoved an unarmed protester off a staircase, nearly killing him. We'll put that footage up on the screen since nobody ever really talks about it. The guy they pushed was unresponsive and seriously injured. On top of that, there's evidence that an officer may have beaten Roseanne Boyland, another unarmed protester who died on January 6th. And this is just a small sampling of excessive use of force on one day. When the FBI, armed with a battering ram, knocked down James O'Keefe's door at 6 a.m. and made him stand outside in his underwear while they ransacked his apartment, not one agent was even disciplined, much less terminated. They were harassing and humiliating a journalist along with everyone who worked with him in clear violation of the First Amendment. And then again, the agents were on a mission to destroy all evidence of Ashley Biden's diary and all her, various stories about showering with her father and all that. So, they had nothing to worry about. Along the same lines, as we've discussed previously, 25 heavily armed FBI agents pointed their rifles at Mark Houck in front of his children for the crime of protesting abortion. One of the agents mocked Houck's children as they watched their father getting dragged away. But again, nothing happened to any of those people. Conservatives complained about all these incidents constantly. We complained in Congress, on cable television, on podcasts, on social media, everywhere. But the Biden administration just ignored us because, of course, they would. And there's a reason for that. The Biden administration understood that when you're waging total war on the domestic front, there's no room for infighting. A unified front is far more effective in every case. Their goal was to demonize and ultimately destroy Christians and conservatives, and they ruthlessly pursued that goal. So they looked the other way when their agents committed acts of unlawful violence. In fact, every single Democrat in the country supported this approach. That's what we saw for the past 4 years. It's what we're still seeing today. Unanimous agreement. The test for the Trump administration, maybe the only test that matters, is whether they're willing to demonstrate half as much commitment and dedication to their mission as the left. The conservatives, particularly Christians, are being gunned down every other day. Democrats are openly celebrating the violence and encouraging more of it. Incitement is their entire political platform. And these people will succeed unless they are crushed unapologetically by a unified right. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that the Trump administration should commit acts of unlawful violence, as the Biden administration did. I've been very clear about that. I mean, all conservatives are very clear about that. We don't want any unlawful violence. We don't want any persecution, oppression, chaos. We stand against that because we're conservatives. We want to conserve law and order. We want to conserve civilization and protect it against the enemies of civilization. Now, what I am saying is that when you're faced with a highly motivated and organized enemy and a violent enemy, it's critically important to look after your own people. Don't hamstring your own officers. Don't pay any attention whatsoever to the fake outrage mobs on the left. Ignore the constant drumbeat of lies from every single mainstream media outlet and go out and crush these terrorists. That's the bar that the current administration has to meet. That's the test they have to pass. Well, over the weekend, someone in the Trump administration failed this test. And we have to talk about it because they failed it very badly. And we got to call this kind of stuff out because we just can't have it. So footage was posted online of a scuffle at an immigration court in Lower Manhattan involving an ICE officer and a woman named Monica Moreda Galarraza. The woman is apparently not an American citizen. Neither is her husband. And when ICE agents detained her husband, Monica had a meltdown And here's footage that went viral, which was posted by a reporter from ProPublica, the left-wing outlet that specializes in hit pieces against conservatives, and particularly against conservative Supreme Court justices. Now they've moved on to ICE agents. And so this is the footage that they put out. Watch.
Oh, come on, man. Come on.
As you can see, all the reporters are eagerly taking pictures. They were all looking for a moment like this, which they could use to spread the narrative that ICE is randomly attacking innocent women for no reason. And of course, to that end, the footage from this ProPublica reporter starts after the ICE agent is already pushing the woman. So we have no context whatsoever. We have no information about what led up to it, which is everything. You cannot make any judgment at all without knowing what led up to an incident like this. So it's obviously a misleading clip. It's intended to provide ammunition to leftists who want open borders, and that's not a surprise. And we expect this kind of dishonesty from these people. What we don't expect, and what we shouldn't tolerate, is that, and what we shouldn't expect anyway, although maybe some people do, is that the Trump administration would fall for this propaganda, but they did. In response to an inquiry from CNN, DHS folded immediately. This is a statement from DHS, officially, okay, from their spokeswoman. Quote, "The officer's conduct in this video is unacceptable and beneath the men and women of ICE." That's according to Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin on Friday. "Our ICE law enforcement are held to the highest professional standards, and this officer is being relieved of current duties as we conduct a full investigation." Now, obviously, this statement was an immediate propaganda victory for the entire left-wing media. It became a rallying cry for the communists on Reddit who are calling for ICE officers to be murdered. And the message to rank-and-file ICE officers couldn't be any more clear. Your superiors don't have your back. They don't care if you're forced to defend yourself against criminal illegal aliens. They will throw you under the bus at a moment's notice. Now, here's a longer clip of this incident, which actually provides some meaningful context. ICE, of course, had access to this footage when they suspended the agent and when they put out that statement, but they ignored it, apparently. Watch.
No me toques, señora. Adiós, adiós. 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 Oh, come on, man.
Now, as you can see from this clip, the woman puts her hands on the ICE officer multiple times. She corners him. He's trying to tell her to leave. She's hysterical. She keeps making physical contact with a federal officer, which is against the law. If you or I did this to a law enforcement officer, we would receive exactly the same treatment. This woman was repeatedly told to leave, to calm down, and she responded by touching this ICE officer several times. And especially right now when federal agents are being attacked constantly, that's not something that you can tolerate. And therefore, in a completely lawful and justified response, the officer pushes the woman back towards a line of uniformed security guards. And that's all. And then she falls and she fakes some kind of injury. Okay, she wasn't injured. Like, she fell over. Big deal. She's fine. And she absolutely had that response coming. She deserved it. That's on her. And that's the whole story. So who exactly in the Trump administration authorized that statement to go out blaming the ICE officer? What was the thinking behind it? And whoever was responsible should obviously be fired immediately. The DHS spokeswoman should be gone. Should be publicly fired. And whoever else was involved should be fired. They are grossly unqualified for their position at best. At worst, they're working for the enemy from within. Now, in this case, within about 48 hours, DHS reportedly backtracked. They've apparently placed this officer back on active duty. But we still need clarity as to how exactly this happened. Actually, the fact that they put him back on duty after 48 hours, I was talking about, I posted about this the next day. And there were people trying to defend the administration saying, oh, no, it's fine. They put him back on duty. That makes it worse. Okay, so they after 2 days, they just put him back on duty. So then why was their first instinct to condemn his behavior? So what you're telling me is that, so they conducted a review and then so before they even reviewed what happened, they put out a statement saying it was unacceptable and beneath the standards of ICE? So you're telling me before there was any review, you had no clue. You hadn't even looked at the video yet. And you just immediately, based on what the media said, you said, oh yeah, well, I mean, if you guys are saying that, clearly it must have been unacceptable behavior. That makes it worse. So for the past several days, mobs of Antifa rioters have been surrounding ICE facilities, particularly in Portland and Broadview, Illinois. They've surrounded multiple ICE vehicles in order to disrupt operations. If we're going to stop these people from continuing to commit acts of terrorism, every federal agent needs to have assurances that they're not going to be punished for doing their job. Now, to be sure, the Trump administration has put out several statements indicating that they intend to implement a full-on crackdown. The Attorney General, for example, put out this statement, quote, I've witnessed the continued onslaught of violence perpetrated against ICE officers across our country. The Department of Justice will not stand idly by in the face of such lawlessness. At my direction, I'm deploying DOJ agents to ICE facilities and wherever ICE comes under siege to safeguard federal agents, protect federal property, and immediately arrest all individuals engaged in any federal crime. I'm also instructing the Joint Terrorism Task Force across the country to disrupt and investigate all entities and individuals engaged in acts of domestic terrorism. And for his part, Donald Trump posted this message on Truth Social, quote, he says that he's directing troops to war-ravaged Portland, as well as every other ICE facility that's under siege. And he states that, quote, I am also authorizing full force if necessary. Well, that's the right language. But in practice, you have to wonder what it actually means. I mean, there's been an undeniable pattern of tough-sounding statements, but without the follow-through. This was a post from Pam Bondi just a couple of weeks ago, for example. Quote, if you touch any law enforcement officer, we will come after you. Well, so much for that. What she really meant was, if you touch any law enforcement officer, we'll come after the officer. You know, if CNN and ProPublica are upset about it, then we'll come after the officer. All this is to say, we are well past the point where we can be impressed with, you know, strongly worded tweets and letters and statements and all that. You have to actually start making arrests, like mass arrests. Why have we not seen any of that at all, period? I mean, we've heard about it. We've heard about it, that it might happen. Have we seen any footage anywhere at all, period, of leftist insurrectionists being rounded up en masse and arrested? Has it happened at all, anywhere, at all? You ever think you're buying good old American meats at the grocery store? Yeah, so did I, until I learned the labels can say products of the USA for meat that's never even met an American cow. Over 4 billion pounds of the stuff imported last year, all dressed up to look local, even though it isn't. I mean, what else are those labels trying to pull on us? That's what you have to ask. So I started looking for something I could actually trust, especially with kids to feed and a wife who can spot a so-so steak from a mile away. And that's when I found Good Ranchers. These guys only work with local American farms, 100% of it, not a single mystery meat cut in the bunch. Honestly, I joined up for the deals, $25 off every box, free shipping, and a free lifelong gift. We rotate between bacon, Italian sausage, and my personal favorite, those chicken thighs. And if life gets hectic, well, you could pause or skip a box easily, no problem, no guilt trips. No subscription shenanigans. I also love their steaks. They're so unbelievably good and tender that they make pricey steakhouse cuts taste like side dishes at a drive-thru. You just can't beat the quality that Good Ranchers delivers. Best part, my code Walsh gets you $40 off and free meat for life when you subscribe. That's right, $40 off, free meat for life with code Walsh. Just go to goodranchers.com and get fully American meat delivered straight to your door. Goodranchers.com. Welcome to the table. They need to hunt down and arrest all of the leftist terrorists who are visibly on camera, openly committing federal crimes. It wouldn't even require a January 6th style dragnet. They wouldn't need to distribute wanted posters or anything like that. These people are uploading the footage of their own crimes in real time. They're advertising it. They're saying, hey, look at all these crimes we're committing, guys. Isn't this great? Here's just one example. It was uploaded by a communist named Kat Abuguzela in Broadview, Illinois. She used to work as a propagandist for Media Matters before she became a politician. So, a lateral move in terms of being a propagandist. And in this video, she and many other people are deliberately blocking a federal vehicle on the road. Watch.
Up with liberation! Down, down with deportation! Up with liberation!
Up with liberation!
Down, down with deportation!
Down with deportation!
Up with liberation!
Now, among other things, this is an obvious threat to the safety of the federal officials in that car, as well as anyone they might be transporting. The communists have frozen the car in place so that anyone can take a shot at them. Anything could happen at that point. Now that you're surrounded by a vehicle, we've seen this. Anything could happen. You got a leftist with a sniper rifle, like the one who opened fire on an ICE facility just a few days ago. So the necessary response here by ICE is to keep driving. They shouldn't have to wait until they get shot. When a mob surrounds your car on the street, they are kidnapping you by definition. You're being held against your will. You're being prevented from going anywhere. And the appropriate response when a mob tries to kidnap you is to use any force necessary to escape. When a mob surrounds you, you are not under any moral or legal obligation to comply with their demands. You should leave. You should escape by whatever means necessary. Whatever you have to do to get out is what you should do. If the mob gets hurt in the process, that's their own fault. They chose to throw themselves in front of a moving vehicle. They have nobody to blame but themselves, and this should be obvious. But that didn't happen here, presumably because the agents were worried that, Pam Bondi might ruin their lives. And that still doesn't address the question of why, Kat Abuguzela and the rest of the mob are walking free at the moment. Why is it they're all on camera? Why aren't they all arrested right now? We actually need an answer to that. Everybody just in that video alone, surrounding a law enforcement vehicle and preventing them from leaving, that's a crime. You're not allowed to do that. So why have we not rounded up every single person on video there? And why are they all not currently, as we speak, in solitary confinement in a federal prison? Why? If it was good enough for January 6th defendants, including grandmothers with terminal cancer who never bothered a single federal employee, it's good enough for these terrorists. What the hell do you think would have happened in the reverse? What would happen if those were right-wing protesters upset about, upset about immigration, surrounding a law enforcement vehicle like that? What do you think could happen? Do you think any of them are walking free right now at all? It's also good enough for, this morbidly obese woman who was blocking an ICE vehicle. Watch.
Move out of the car, you're going to handcuffs too.
Can you have identification to arrest someone?
Please, I'm sorry, why are you touching me? You're assaulting me! You are assaulting me! Why are you assaulting me? This is assault! You are assaulting me!
No.
You are
You need
a
identification
graceful person
to arrest
touching
someone.
me! That is assault!
Did you read the other person her rights? Were you going to read
That
her
is
rights?
assault! You do not touch somebody!
Now, again, as entertaining as this footage is, she should have been arrested. I'm not exactly sure where this was shot, but she was clearly obstructing a federal law enforcement vehicle. And yet, instead of an arrest, she got her first cardio workout in a very, very long time. So what's the DOJ's excuse here? How can the administration call Antifa a domestic terror organization and then ignore the fact that these people are being caught on film, in some cases filming themselves, as they commit federal crimes? Is that what full force means? I mean, as best I can tell, full force means, so far it has meant that, the administration is going to deploy people around these federal buildings, and then those people are going to stand there and just be harassed and threatened. And every once in a while, maybe they'll make an arrest. In fact, they'll allow the insurrectionists to push up against the officers, make handgun gestures towards them. The only response from the officers in many cases is to walk backwards. This footage is from Katie Daviscourt at the Post Millennial from yesterday afternoon in Portland, Oregon, as well as Saturday night. Watch this. We simply cannot allow hundreds of leftists to gather outside of a federal facility, leftists, many of whom are in an organization that the White House has just labeled a domestic terrorist organization, a label that so far has been totally meaningless, absolutely meaningless. They've done nothing with that label except to just say it. But we can't allow them to stand in the middle of the street and repeatedly make physical contact with officers while threatening them like this, particularly when these leftists belong to, again, a domestic terror organization by your own testimony. It's not remotely sufficient to arrest one or two of them when they throw a brick or something like that. The crowd is providing cover for the attacker. They are all complicit. They're blocking traffic. They're part of an unruly mob. They should be arrested, all of them, now. Statements are not good enough. For their part, Democrats aren't simply issuing statements. They're killing conservatives and Christians. They're shooting at ICE agents and dragging them underneath cars. And as all this is going on, Democrats are deliberately inciting more violence. Gavin Newsom's press account just posted this message, for example. It says, quote, "Stephen Miller is a fascist." Now, they have many more posts like this. Just a couple of weeks after a prominent Christian conservative was shot by a leftist who wrote, "Hey, fascist, catch" on a bullet, here they are labeling Donald Trump's chief advisor a fascist. Why are they doing that? Because they want him dead. They want a leftist to take him out. I mean, it really is as simple as that. Because, by the way, as much as we say that, the assassination of Charlie Kirk was backfired on the left because now you have a million more Charlie Kirks. And in a sense, of course, that's true that people are, outraged and motivated on the right in a way that they never have been. But in another sense, as I've been saying this whole time, the reality is that Charlie Kirk is gone now. He was among other things, a very, very effective fighter, and he's gone. And so there are plenty of people on the left who look at it as, it doesn't backfire at all. It's actually very effective. Take out Stephen Miller. That's basically what Gavin Newsom's calling for. In this environment, without calling him a fascist, you are right up to the line of just calling for someone to, hey, take this guy out. And they're not worried about, now we're going to have a million more Stephen Millers, because the way they look at it is, no, now we have 0 Stephen Millers. You take him out, now there's none left, actually. I mean, if you're a demonic, evil person, and you have no fundamental problem with murder, which these people don't, then you see assassination as a really useful and effective tool. And that's the way that they look at it now. When Luigi Mangione killed the healthcare CEO, they're not worried about, now we're going to have a million more healthcare CEOs rising up. No, it's like, we don't like that guy, and he's gone now. We're just going to kill him. That's the way they look at it. The point of calling people Nazis is to justify their murder. That's the point of calling them fascists, the point of using these labels. At this point, everyone, including federal prosecutors at the DOJ, should stop pretending otherwise. It's never been more apparent that the goal of leftism is the extermination of conservatives using lawfare and violence if necessary. The New York Times just ran this obituary for Assata Shakur, who's the Black Liberation Army terrorist who murdered a New Jersey state trooper in 1977, only to be busted out of jail by her fellow communists in 1979, at which point she fled to Cuba. And here's the New York Times headline on the obituary of someone who's convicted and who there's no question committed first-degree murder against an innocent person. Never had any remorse for it, was never held accountable, or was held accountable, but then escaped. Here's the headline, quote, Assata Shakur dies at 78. Convicted revolutionary found refuge in Cuba. Yeah, she's a convicted revolutionary. Not a convicted cop killer and a terrorist who remained on the FBI's most wanted list until the day she died. No, her only crime is being too revolutionary. That's what the left thinks of law enforcement. It's what they think of human life. None of it matters to them, and now they're admitting it as plainly as they possibly can. The Chicago Teachers Union agrees. They're also on board with murder in the name of black liberation. This is a union that represents roughly 30,000 teachers who teach hundreds of thousands of students in public school. And here's what they wrote, quote, rest in power, rest in peace, Assata Shakur. Today we honor the life and legacy of a revolutionary fighter, a fierce writer, a revered elder of black liberation, and a leader of freedom whose spirit continues to live on in our struggle. Assata refused to be silenced. She taught us that it is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and we must support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. This is the teachers union. Not even subtly. This is just full on celebrating a woman who committed first-degree murder. And this is not some fringe group. This is not Antifa. This is not, I'm not pulling a comment from, Blue Sky. This is the teachers union saying this. It's mainstream. This is the modern left. It's what it always was, really, but the subtlety is all gone now. They want conservatives dead. They don't have a problem with murder as long as it's someone they don't like. That's why they celebrated what happened to Charlie Kirk. It's why they're glorifying this terrorist. It's why they call conservatives Nazis and fascists. And it's why they're doing everything in their power to ensure that the federal government can't deport the millions of foreign criminals who currently live in the country. So this is a real insurrection we're dealing with here. And it's one that is not just happening on the fringes, but supported, promoted by one of the major political parties in this country, and has effectively declared that it's not bound by the law. I mean, at the moment, it doesn't appear that we're really contending with the full gravity of this crisis. I mean, if we aren't prepared to actually we talk about full force. If we're not going to actually use full force against these insurrectionists, then the phrase should not be used in a statement. And then all we're doing is we're creating this no-win situation, where if some insurrectionist bumps her elbow or gets a skinned knee, suddenly it's a huge national scandal, and we got to toss the person under the bus. My fear right now is that the second any cop, ICE agent, or National Guardsman really uses full force. I mean, you talk about full force. It has not. We haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen anything close to that. We have not seen anything close to law enforcement agents using full force against the insurrectionist threat. The second it happens, that is, that legal and justified violence is used by an authorized agent against a criminal terrorist, that's what we're talking about. My fear is the second it happens, he'll be stabbed in the back the same way that Chauvin was, the same way that this ICE officer was. You need to have the stomach for the insane outrage cycle that will inevitably follow from any use of force, whether full or not. So far, we haven't actually seen the military or law enforcement go on the offense against these terrorists. They're mostly instructed to show up and just stand there while they get harassed and assaulted by the mob. That needs to change. The left has laid out the ground rules for all-out warfare. They're going to continue to test this administration until they make a choice. Do we all have to endure several more years of terrorism in which Antifa terrorists are allowed to subvert the rule of law and the will of the voters? Or are we actually going to treat these terrorists like terrorists? That's the choice this administration now faces. And we can't afford for them to make the wrong one. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.